Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this is part 4 video on clean architecture MediatR CQRS pattern in .NET 7 Web API. So in this video, we are going to implement command operation using MediatR CQRS. So to implement command operation, we need to create request model, response model, and command handler. Let's create them. Okay, in our application project for query operation, we have created get all beaches files, right? So inside of the beach folder, let me create one more folder like create beach. Okay, so these files for inserting or creating the new record into our database. Okay, first let me create the response model. Okay, so for this create operation, I am not going to create explicit response model because I just want to return newly created item ID, okay, which means scalar primitive type. So I am not going to create a create response object here. So let's directly create the request object, okay. Create beach request.cs is my file name. Okay, this is my create beach request. So let's add the properties. So this create beach request will be used as a payload object. Okay, so let me open beach entity. Okay, accept ID value because I am going to create new record, right? So from user payload, I no need ID value. I just need remaining properties. Copy these properties, add it here. Okay, so I have created payload object. Now to make it MediatR request object, it must inherit I request. Okay, and here I mentioned I am going to return simple integer, which means item ID, right? So here I can give response type like integer. Okay, now let me create my command handler class. Okay, create beach command handler. Okay, now let's inherit I request handler. Okay, that comes from MediatR. Now specify the request object and response object. Our request object is create beach request and response is simple integer. Okay, now implement the handle method. Okay, now my payload object is create beach request, right? Now I have to map it to each entity before saving into the database. So for that, let's create a profiler for our create beach also. Okay, so let me create a profiler class like create beach mapper. Okay, here is our create beach mapper class. Now let's inherit the profiler instance that loads from auto mapper. So profile, and let's add constructor and register our mapping source and destination object. Okay, create map, and in my case source is my payload object create beach request object. Okay, okay, here let me give the actual namespace. Okay, and now Let's define the source object. I mentioned, right, source object is our table class, that is beach. So I can give okay. My mapper class is ready with the configurations. Now let's get back to our create beach command handler. Let's inject our DB context as well as IMapper service. Okay. Okay. Let's inject as well and assign it here. Now let's inject IMapper service also. Okay. IMapper. Okay. Now inside of the handle method, let's implement our insertion. So I can call my whole DB con. So first let's map the create beach request object to our entity object. Okay. So where new beach. Okay. So create map and specify the destination object. Destination object is our beach model. Okay. And here pass our payload request object. Okay, now we successfully converted our payload object. Now I can add it to the DB context. Okay, let's call save changes async method. And finally, let's return my newly created item ID as a response. Okay, so we are done with our command handler logic. Okay, so here you can see the files of our command handler. Okay, now let's create the post endpoint in our controller, speech controller. Okay, public async task reaction result post async. Okay, it should be decorated with HTTP post verb. Okay, it should contains our request object. So what is our request payload type? Create beach request payload. Okay, now I can use my mediator query iMediator.send. So send simply expects just our request object. Here request object is our payload. Okay, so where ID. Okay, newly created item ID. I will return it in the response. Okay, let's try to insert the new record. Okay, here you can see the post endpoint. Okay, and let me try to insert a new record. Okay, here is my sample payload data I just added. Let's click on execute button. See, I got 200 response and some ID value. Just try to execute our get endpoint to confirm that record is inserted. And here is the new record we just inserted. Okay, from this we can understand we have successfully implemented the command handler of the CQRS in our clean architecture project. Okay, and finally next we are going to implement the validations into our API using the MediatR pipeline behavior middleware. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please do support me by subscribing to the channel. Soon we are going to meet with new content. Until then, signing off.